I feel like we've definitely all had that at one point.
Coming to Rutgers, was this everyone's first choice coming to school?
No.
Yeah? Mixed results, definitely. Does anybody else have any other personal things? Yeah.
I mean, for me, I think it's really different. What I've never heard of people winning a lottery to get into school.
Yeah.
It's always been whatever public system you're in. I mean, my public system wasn't that bad, so it was not a big deal. It's like, but for colleges, it's like a different thing because it's you get chosen based on your application, based on what you see. It's a complete like getting chosen based on like a number. It's really hard.
Really mind-blowing, yeah.
So like this documentary I like saw like my freshman year. I think it like came out in 2008, and I guess I come from like a privileged township, and we had a charter system, but like our public schools were really highly ranked, and it was just that our like what are they called? Our VOTEC schools were like really top ranked. So it was really funny seeing how like I was like my sister got into the VOTEC school and I didn't, and I was like crushed. And then I like saw Superman 4 years later, and I like the emotional differences, and like it just showed like how structure really does affect an individual, and if you're not really considerate of structure, it's really not fair to an individual.
Yeah.
So it was just really strange seeing how like I was so discouraged when I didn't get in, and then it was like Daisy didn't get into the VOTEC school, so it was hard.
Okay.
Yeah, like similar to what she was saying, because like my school has like really good public schools, and then like our vocational schools are even like better.
Yeah.
And like my parents wanted me to go to VOTEC school, and I didn't because I wanted to be with my friends in public school.
That's
so to think that,
yeah.
that these kids are like hoping for that, it's like really a crazy dynamic. It's really different.
So you guys had mentioned that Rutgers, some of you guys, Rutgers wasn't your first choice. What's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Como.
And Abigail, you guys both shook your head like this was not your first choice. Like why was this your fallback school? Like what about Rutgers?
I just wanted to get out of New Jersey really badly. Like I wanted like a research university.
Yeah.
So like when I found out like I basically didn't get in anywhere else, and I got in here and I was like, all right, like cool, I can afford it. It's got the research I want. So I wasn't like crushed, but I just really wanted to get out of New Jersey.
Como, so is that similar to what you wanted, or?
No, mine was structure related.
Yeah.
I got into a pretty expensive private school, but I got into a program. But I came to Rutgers and I got more money, and my parents were like, no, you should go there. So I was kind of upset, but I dealt with it. So I'm really glad that I came to Rutgers and I made the best of it.
So now that you guys are here, has your opinion changed? Like Abigail, do you feel different now that Rutgers is?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have bothered if I could go back and be like, don't even bother. You're gonna have a decent time, here, and you're gonna like it. So don't put yourself through all the stress.
Yeah. So yes.
I feel like obviously like for Anthony and Daisy, it's kind of, we kind of see that it's a really horrible situation for them, but I think at the same time there's like a hope in it, and I think the same hope kind of like filters upwards, and it's kind of like to not be too metaphysical about it. Like America kind of offers that. I feel like, unlike a lot of other places, prior in history. But in general, I think that I think and that hope is like the hope to change your structure, as impossible as it may seem. And like for me, like Rutgers was not my first choice. But,
Yeah.
I was, for some reason I thought that that it wasn't a change in structure as much as another school. And I think coming here, that's like not the case anymore. For me, at least, as a computer science major, really. I see that the structure is so completely like been eradicated in the last few years, so it doesn't even make too much of a difference for me, and I think for a lot of people also. So I don't know, I think it's interesting that that's kind of like a common theme for any like strata person to like want to change their structure.
Definitely. And like the fact that you guys all got into Rutgers, it doesn't matter what your it doesn't matter whether you're a minority or you're a male or a female. Once you get here, Rutgers offers you the greatest education you can hope to have. There's so many departments at Rutgers. There's so many learning centers. There's such esteemed faculty and staff who have office hours that are just literally waiting for you guys to go and ask them questions. And so for the rest of the class, we're going to go through the Rutgers, we're going to go through the different learning centers we have at Rutgers. I'm going to teach you guys how to fill out a writing center request form. I personally get all of my major papers read at the writing center before I turn turned them in, and I'm going to be a senior, and I'm probably the same age as the people that are reading my paper. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to share with you how to write an email to your students, to your faculty, what to say and what not to say, and then we're going to go over office hours tips, like questions you can ask your professors. Okay, and scene. That's the end. So I ended up running 5 minutes over, and that was because you guys were talking and really, really engaged. And that will happen in your class, so you just kind of have to learn to tailor your lesson plan to a very talkative class. And if you don't have a talkative class, you need additional resources. So I had that backup video of where Anthony is now in case my class ran short. So, okay, so I'm gonna like sit. You guys have any questions about what? Okay, you can't see me. Do you guys have any questions? Things you might have done differently than me? That you want to talk about? Yeah.
So like when you did that with the actual quiz class,
Yeah.
how did it go? Like what were the main problems that came up?
Okay, so I did this, I strategically planned this in week 7 because my students had become really comfortable with each other, and my kids were willing to discuss their structure and their agency. Much like you guys, I was surprised you guys participated because the group before us didn't. So thank you for participating. And you will have those students who by week 7 are really comfortable with you and the rest of their classmates. And that was huge for me. I really wanted my students to be comfortable with each other. So having group activities is really great, and then mixing your students up within that group is also really important. All this was received really well. My students loved waiting for Superman. Having a video breaks up the monotony of the classroom, and also I made sure that I had large groups, small group, multimedia, like individual activities. Like I had everything to keep everybody engaged. And my classes are constantly moving, so you have to like keep up with me, and you have to be listening. So it's like a lot. And you will master that, because the first couple of classes I was standing up there talking with my my PowerPoint. That was like my go-to thing when I was like uncomfortable. But like no, you have to be comfortable with exploring different options, because YouTube, TED Talks work great with your kids, students. I keep saying kids. Anybody else have questions? Do you know what element I covered? Oh, lesson plan. This is my lesson plan. Oh wait, don't look at it first. What element have I covered? Yes, you did. Academic success. So the whole purpose of, I think the purpose of this is for you guys to see what we did, and you guys can love what I did or hate what I did. So you guys can really model, you guys can do something completely different based on what you think will work in your classroom. This class went really, really well. My kids loved the terminology. I hear talking. Any questions about it? Anything that you guys want to bounce ideas off of? Yes.
I have a pretty simple question. I've never really known I've been in college for 2 years. What exactly is anthropology?
Okay, anthropology. Anthro is basically the study of people. There's a fourfold. There's cultural, linguistic, evolutionary, and biological. So I'm a cultural anthropologist / linguistics. I'm really interested in how individuals make up a society and how societies are different than others. And then how language plays into that, so how it helps with that. And also a double major in gender studies. So you guys, this could be the last class, the last group had asked me why this wasn't a diversity one. It could be, you can completely tailor this and have 2 elements, kill 2 birds with one stone. You can incorporate both. I could have, does anyone know how I could have manipulated this and made this a diversity element as well? Yeah.
You could have added the other girl from California, the Palo Alto one, and because then you would have had three races, and then just talk about it that way.
Okay, not quite, but I could have done that too.
I was gonna say you could have shown a video like a higher LCS family to like kind of like do both extremes and say like is race a factor into this, or is it like what makes the difference between the 2 education levels? I guess.
Okay, those are like awesome suggestions. But if you guys read your IT requirements, it says diversity. You have to have it relate back to Rutgers. So me talking about diverse groups of people isn't diversity. That was my biggest flaw when I ended up sending Lynn and Sarah Beth my lesson plans. They're like, how does this relate back to Rutgers? Like, how is this diversity at Rutgers? So I could have talked, if I wanted to make this about diversity at Rutgers, I could have talked about how every single student at Rutgers comes from a very diverse background, different socioeconomic classes, but we're still here and we're all having, we have the same education available to us. So whether or not our structure is different, we have the same agency at Rutgers. It's a little similar. You have the capacity to succeed, basically. So you can incorporate multiple elements into one.
What was the first element you taught? So I feel like the first class is the hardest one because you don't know what's going to happen. So what's like a good first element to start with?
I did community development. That was the first one because the first day is like syllabus day. So you open up your class with your scrapers and throughout the class you do like activities. So that was what I did. That was like the easiest for me. And also don't feel free to every class do something community building because my one of the feedback that I got from one of my students was like they wanted more takeovers. So your students are going to want to interact with others. So that's why you have to incorporate. Oh, also I did a mid-semester check-in that really helped because your students give you feedback. And they ask what they want to see more of.
But what I would add is, like, Michelle took an interesting component from anthropology, right? The structure and agency, and got the students really excited about talking about that, and then transitioned into this idea of what does success mean, right? So you want to kind of wrap your head around all of those things. Like, how are you going to make academic success work for your particular class? Is there a creative way to connect it to business? How do you connect it to nursing? Those are the things that we're, when I talk about like the spinach in the casserole, like hiding the goodness, right? Because they're excited about talking about these topical sorts of things, but then how do you connect it back to these elements, and how do you kind of weave it all together, if that makes sense? I don't know, Michelle, is there anything else about your lesson plan that you want to walk them through, like how you set it up in our last few minutes?
So if you ask any PI how they started their lesson plan, everyone will say something different. How I initially started was I pulled my favorite readings from classes and kind of tailored them to fit into the elements. So I love Jean and Young's social class and hidden curriculum reading. So I assigned that for homework and then kind of laid the groundwork for that class so the students had background knowledge. They read an article that talked about 4 different types of education, and then I made case studies. I typed up case studies and handed them out into small groups, split them up into small groups, handed out the case studies, and made them, had them align what case study was which socioeconomic class. So this kind of tested the students to make sure they read, and then they kind of reconvened into a large group, and we discussed 4 large, broad questions. So while you're doing this, the PI, you will know who reads and who doesn't, so you'll find creative ways to make sure your students are reading. So when they come into class and they have an activity, and you're monitoring the class and you're sitting in each group, you'll know who reading and who didn't. So someone takes the initiative and others not just like sit back. So, and then I came up with 4 broad questions that I asked when my class reconvened as a whole. And then I did the PowerPoint for this part, found applicable videos, and then on my laptop I showed them how to fill out the Writing Center request form, and then we went over office hours. So like what you should and should not say to your professor, what questions can you ask them that will help you build a relationship with your professors. And then we did emails we sent to the students. And you can find all of this on Sakai because we had to post everything that we just talked about. Anything else? Random tips that I've been thinking about. So I dressed kind of like this every single day. I personally think that how you present yourself makes a really big difference to your students. So I kind of like try to look cute every day. And then none of my students really came in sweatpants. Also, don't have your phone out. I had it because I had to make sure I could check time, but like a watch really works well because if you have your phone out, I found that your students think it's okay to have your cell phones out. So don't have your phone out. Also, assigning readings. You don't have to assign all 10 weeks of reading. like I did I think like 4 or 5, but it's a really good practice for your class. Water really good because I tend to lose my voice, so hot tea worked really well for me. And I usually didn't talk for most of my class, so this was like kind of different. And what else is there? I'd say like definitely facilitating or fostering an atmosphere that our students are comfortable. Like I'm really glad that you guys talked, and that happened in my class. My kids were talkative, and they genuinely really appreciated each other. So that's kind of like that was like my meta question. I really wanted my students to be appreciative of others, and I got that at the end. So definitely think about your meta question for students. Anything else? No? Okay. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.